Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. My name is Caleb Kenner, and I am introducing a mechanic of player switching. The first entity is the Knight. This player right here. And the second entity is the Ghost. The Knight has a lot of stamina, so they can move a bunch of blocks in a level, but the Knight cannot get across pits or waterways. The Ghost cannot also grab keys and or open doors. With this mechanic, you have to use both the Knight and the Ghost to get to the end of the level. Here in the second level, the difficulty gets a lot much harder and tries to really force the player to think in new perspectives and how they can use the Ghost and the Knight. Because of the Ghost ability to be able to walk over gaps, it makes it the player might lean towards using the Ghost. But in most circumstances, because the Ghost has low stamina, they will run out of stamina before they can get to the end of the game. In all cases, this may not be necessary, but in this case, for this level, it is crucial that the player uses the Knight and the Ghost properly. Make sure the Ghost is only used for moves that it needs to be used. As you see, just with those moves, the Ghost is already almost out of stamina, leaving leeway for one mistake. The Ghost is also not able to get to the end of the level by itself. If the Ghost steps on the wind tile, the game simply just won't accept the Ghost. The Knight has to be the one that makes it to the end. In this level, I used a mechanic from associates of mine, flowing water. So stepping on a tile will flow you to wherever the water ends, resetting the level. This can be prevented by taking experience from Chip's Adventure, I believe. You can push the blocks into the water, same as you can with pits. here's an example that the blocks do stop the player from continuing to slide down all the way down. Show you a better example from over here. And that helps the player that gives the player a way to strategize how they can get to the end of the level better. And essentially, after the player gets this block to the end of the level, they can unlock the door and beat the third level, the final level. Now I'll show you how I used all these blueprints. I did change some of the code that was given to us so that I could work better with how I wanted it to work. Going to start here. Sorry, I didn't have my mouse on me right now. I cannot move properly. So essentially, here I'm asking if the tile has on exit on the top if the tile had an entity already, and how that is checked is it sets the previous entity as the current entity, and it sets the current entity as the player entering or the entity entering the tile, and then ask if the previous entity is isn't interactable. If it isn't interactable, then make sure that it's reset back to what it was before, and that is for I had that code there for if and when the ghost goes through certain objects. It helps allow the ghost to essentially ignore if that thing is enterable or not, and then after the ghost leaves, it makes sure that thing is set back to essentially whatever it was prior to. The waterway is just a modified pit. I got rid of the dying and restarting the level part, and here at the end, I just make sure if the block if you push an interactable box into the pit, then set it as pit blocked and say the pit is enterable. And then down here is if the pit is if the pit is not blocked, then I can then move the player to the next tile. This is the code essentially saying that if there's a block in the water, then stop the player at that block, allowing the player to regain control. My apologies. It's not easy using this touchpad. Okay, so the how the player switching works is it makes asks the player is a knight or not. The player is not a knight, then switch the knight. If they are a knight, then switch the ghost. And then this boolean is just an extra check for other things when getting access for of the entity player. They can use that entity. They can use that as a means to run their code off of. And then here at the back end is just handling the post processing effects for the entity types. For the ghost gets that black and white grainy effect, and then the knight gets a clearer screen. The knight I won't show the knight's blueprint because there's not much changes in there besides the stamina. The ghost, however, has these changes. This was for the last thing I was working on, and I wanted to have grid light mechanic in here similar to Minecraft, and this was essentially saying if the light is anything greater than 0, then don't allow the ghost to enter. And then here is disallowing the ghost from picking up any keys. And that is about all the code I changed and or added into the Tornamental project. Thank you and have a good day.